Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Hello and welcome back to Thursday Thoughts. I'm joined here today with Sister Aminah Jane. She's from the parenting team, another, mashallah, newbie that has joined us in the last few months. And we're so excited to be here today to talk about creating and nurturing the affection connection. When she suggested this title, I was really intrigued. I was like, oh, that's really nice. And everyone knows that I like my little titles, to rhyme and have the same letters and stuff. So I really would like to know more about this. Coach Amina. So, Assalamu alaikum, how are you?
Walaikum assalam. I'm just really happy to be here. I've been intending to get on here on Thursday Thoughts for a few weeks now, and here I am. Alhamdulillah, I managed to get in the room with you. Mashallah, it's been, subhanallah, such a busy few weeks. So thank you so much for allowing me this space with you today, because I really love Thursday Thoughts because it's an opportunity to connect, and it's just a short, sharp kind of way for mums to hop online and we all do that scrolling thing, right? When we go on social media, whether it's on the reels or on TikTok, and it's always, alhamdulillah, to find content that is actually something that serves us well. And I absolutely love that. I love it when I go online and I'm like, whoa. So this is what this is intended to be, inshallah. So one of the regular things that has come up over the years for me since I started my private practice is when parents complain, like there's something wrong with my child, like my child doesn't behave, or my child doesn't listen, or my child lies to me, and all this kind of stuff. And there's a lot to be said for establishing a connection before we make a correction to any behavior, right? And at first, when I first heard this myself, and I learned this through my own parenting journey, right? We're all kind of just trying to upskill as we go along quite often, because every one of our own children is different, right? So it's almost like a character building exercise for all of us, isn't it? So I was learning about parenting from a space of not causing any pain, shame, or blame, whether that be emotional or physical, or like I've not been ever one of those parents that actually physically chastise my children. But I am aware that, emotionally painful tactics were used with me while I was growing up, not necessarily in an intended abusive manner, but almost like parents feel like they have to emotionally disconnect to teach their children a lesson sometimes, right? And I can see where they think there's a hidden wisdom in that, but we have to be really careful and really strategic how we do that. And it has to be, really controlled, and the child always has to end up feeling loved and reconnected, so yeah, so connection before correction has always been something that I talk about a lot with parents, because when parents come to me and say, oh, there's something wrong with my child, I just can't get them to do it, I'm always like, so what is it that's bothering you about the child? And we know this, right? Like quite often, and it's not because anybody's intending to do something wrong. It's not because, it's not about blaming mum, and it's not about blaming dad. It's about raising self-awareness with rahmah, with ourselves, and compassion and kindness, so that we can step into a place without blaming ourselves even, and say, hey, this not working out. This technique that my parents did with me, or my grandparents did with me, or my extended family did with me, or society did with me, is not working out, right? So I know that's quite a long intro to connection, correction, and affection. And we can obviously swap and change those terms around. But one of the things that dawned on me, so recently I'm big fan of having conversations with your children, and it's surprising how many people find this whole concept shocking. And I'm like, not conversations about, like, oh, how was your school day today? I'm not talking about those conversations where it's almost like people feel obliged that this is a good mum conversation to have when the kids get in the car. It's about catching them in a moment of calm where they're not super tired and ready for a break because they've been doing some intense socialization throughout the day, or intense rule following throughout the day, or anything like that. It's about catching them in a moment of calm and paying them a compliment that's not a physical compliment, okay? So this establishes a connection. It's positive, for one. So it's like, I did this with my son a couple of weeks ago, and I came out of the conversation, he's 8 years old, and I was just like, subhanallah. And I said to him, you know something? You're a really affectionate boy. Because I don't want to be too tied to the physical beauty and, you know, that whole narrative about, you know, like, oh, your hair's beautiful or your face is beautiful. I want them to appreciate themselves characteristically, because that's what's most important, right? Beauty is nice, but it shines through from the character, of course. So I said, Abdullah, you know, and I looked right at him, and I'm intentionally having soft eyes, and I'm intentionally smiling at him, and I'm intentionally making physical contact with him. So I might touch his shoulder or stroke his head at the same time. And I say, you're such an affectionate boy, and I'm just so proud of you for that. So it's not academic based, it's emotionally based, you know, it's characteristic based, and it's, you know, about positive self-esteem boosting for him as a little 8-year-old. My mum's really happy with me, and I actually haven't done anything. I haven't had to get an A in my class, and I haven't had to, you know, like really go out of my way to somebody right here, right now to get positive reinforcement from her. She's commenting on something that I just am, right? And we can all do this. We might have to search a little bit, because our children might be quite challenging, but I guarantee everybody can find something positive to say that's characteristic based about the children in some way. And he looked at me and he said, what does affection mean? What's affectionate? So I said to him, that's a really good question. Another compliment. Wow, you're intelligent. Because this is what I'm actually telling him when I'm having this conversation, right? And I said, that's a fantastic question. I said, affection is me stroking your head when I came to speak to you then. And my 7-year-old daughter chimed in, or you stroking my back when I want to go to sleep. Okay, so I said, yes, that's physical affection. And I said, when daddy makes the dinner, that's affection, because that's his way of showing the family, you know, like, care about you guys. I want you to eat nice food, and I'm going to make dinner so that mum doesn't have to make dinner today, because we do live in a house where we share responsibilities like that. And sorry, it's raining super heavy here, so if it affects my internet connection, I apologize. It often does when it rains really heavy in Manchester. And anyway, so he looked at me and he said, affection, that's love in action, isn't it, mum? And I was like, yes, Abdullah, that's exactly what affection is. Now, I didn't tell him that. Him in his own little 8-year-old mind deduced that just from this less than a 5-minute exchange, right? But it was really positive. And of course, hugs come after that. And it's like, yeah. So when we make these connections with the children, and obviously this was centered around affection, so there was a lot of affection, you know, flowing at the time. That physical touch that happens at the start, the affection is really important, because it's a physical display, should I say, of I care about you, I'm gentle with you, I'm non-verbally communicating to you right now that I love you unconditionally, actually, regardless of all your shortcomings and regardless of all mine, you know. And even if, so for example, if a child makes a mistake, an example of this would be, I wanted to share that. I've been dying to share that for a few days, and I just didn't have the opportunity. But it was so lovely. We all ended up having a group hug in the kitchen over it. And I praised him even more, of course.
You know what? I wanted to do that from the beginning, but I was like, I bet she's going to stop talking. I'll just remove myself from the stream. I can still hear you.
Oh, I wasn't sure if my internet had kicked me out. I'm so sorry. And yes, so subhanallah, all these little interactions help build self-esteem, they help build self-confidence, they help boost a child's intellectual ability to comprehend emotionally and socially what's happening. And these are all just as important, if not more so, as the academic subjects are, you know, because this is about living life in a way that's, you know, pleasing to Allah. And this is what we're all here for. And so I just wanted to share that little moment. And that has come from a place of, for years and years, I have been intentional about my parenting with these younger children. I have 7 children altogether. Well, I have 3 stepchildren and 4 of my own children, and these are the youngest too. And they're all absolutely different. And one thing I've learned is that whenever anybody makes a mistake, and it doesn't matter if it's the 24-year-old and it doesn't matter if it's the 7-year-old, making a connection before I stand to correct them in some way lets them know non-verbally, you know, well, you can actually use words for this. If it's in relation to a correction, my example would be, I know this was a really hard choice for you, and you know it's not ended well. And I always reiterate, even grown-ups make mistakes, okay? Mummy makes mistakes, daddy makes mistakes, grandma, granddad make mistakes, you know, and So I'm normalizing the fact that it's okay to learn from this. And I say, oh, what do you think we could do next time? And I'm almost always showing them some form of physical affection at the time. I'm not showering them with kisses and hugs, but I might just have a hand on the shoulder, or I might stroke them on the head when I approach them. So they know that I'm coming from a place of sincere care. I'm coming from a place of, I'm here to guide you in kindness and compassion to make better choices for yourself going forward in the future. And so it was just an invitation, really, a really short and snappy invitation. If you can make a connection first, I can see that that was really hard for you. You're empathizing with them, that choices aren't always easy. And sometimes we make the right choice and sometimes we make the wrong choice, even if they've lied. You can even say, I remember when I was little and I ended up lying about something I did because I was so scared to tell the truth about what might happen. That makes sense. That sounds familiar. I'm sure lots of people have said or done that before. And when you make yourself relatable to a child who's in trouble, it significantly reduces the chance of any kind of trauma coming out of the exchange, for one, because they feel a lot less isolated. And two, they actually feel seen, heard, and understood at an empathetic level, even though you're still there to guide them. So I'm not like this person who's like, we shouldn't have serious consequences and all this kind of stuff. I'm definitely somebody who doesn't endorse or promote physical chastisement. I really love positive discipline. Discipline is a good thing as long as it's done in a way that character builds the child instead of demoralizes and humiliates the child. Something that's free of pain, shame, and blame. So, positive discipline does all those things. We're going to be covering that, aren't we, lovely Sarah, in our conference that's coming up next week. I think there's a positive discipline expert in there and she's going to be teaching a workshop on it. So I'm really excited to tune into that. And yeah, so I don't know. I'm actually not on the Facebook thread, so I can't see if there's any questions. Are there any specific questions before we...
Come again.
Salam.
Yeah, mashallah. There, so Sister Rakshanara is here, Sister Saima Tajani, Sister Aisha Javed. So everyone's saying salam. And Sister Rakshanara said her teenage son is not conversational face to face, but sometimes they have the best chats over text, which I thought was really good because I've got teenagers as well, and sometimes it's a bit easier, I feel. What do you think, Coach Amina? It's a little bit easier for them to come to you with something if they can text you rather than have to come and talk to you face to face.
Oh, I absolutely agree, 100%. And you have to just do what works for each individual child and what works for you as well. Sometimes something we underestimate is mum decompression time, even if it's 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there. Sometimes they might want to talk to you face to face and like, I need 5 minutes. And even my youngest children know that if mummy's gone into her bedroom and she's shut the door, she just needs 5 minutes. But yeah, speaking over text, I am a big fan of reducing the amount of interaction. So, like we talk of, I'm not a fan of reward charts. That's one thing, controversial opinion, I know, in modern society, but I'm not. And there are a variety of reasons I'll elaborate on in another live maybe for that. But having non-verbal ways to communicate things to our teenage children and our younger children, I think is really important as well for their independence. And it takes nagging mum out of the equation. It becomes more of this is a personal responsibility and an expectation. And I've got mine as the adult here and you've got yours as a young person here. And, I'm a big fan. I'm an introvert, so I prefer text anyway. I do. Even my husband's like, why do you text me? Why do you text me? And I'm like, he's like, we're married. And I'm like, yeah, but I only text him when we're not in the house together. I know some people text upstairs, downstairs kind of thing. But yeah, generally speaking, I prefer text and voice notes and things like that anyway, because it's the beautiful thing about that. And I love that Roxanara mentioned that, is that nobody has to instantly reply like you would face to face, feel almost obliged, even in your own immediate family. It gives you a moment to just pause, even for half a second, and decide instead of going. I mean, there are times where we go and the thumbs are going like they're on fire, but it gives us an opportunity to not react and choose a response instead. So I love that suggestion, especially with teenagers who like to clam up and don't talk to me about feelings and stuff and all that, and they do that. So great suggestion. I love that. I love that, Aisha. I think I did that as well, thinking about it now. You just brought up a memory from me. I used to do that with my mum for things, especially things that I felt embarrassed to talk to her about, like, oh, I really love you and we've got this great bond, but I can't tell you this face to face. I need to tell you in a letter kind of thing. But the communication was always open. And that's the important thing, it's like when our children close off and stop talking to us, that's when we really want to sit them down and say, hey, I don't know what's going. Is there something happened? Is everything all right? I'm here. And that again is one of not that recently, actually, probably about 6 or 8 weeks ago. Abdullah was upset in the car about something, and I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "I don't want to talk about it." And I said, "Okay, sweetie. Well, whenever you're ready, I'm ready to listen. So you decide." I'm giving him power and control over when he shares with me. Within an hour, he's like, "Oh, by the way, Mum, I'm ready to share with you now." But because I didn't push him, because I didn't insist in the moment, it makes a big difference. What children can have control and autonomy over, like their own lives a little bit. We just need to learn to kind of back off in a helpful way, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. I think sometimes you feel like, oh, but they should do this and they should be doing that. And we need to take that should out of the equation, I feel. Because sometimes, it might be that they should be doing X, Y, Z, but they're not ready for it. And I think Sister Rakshanara just replied to you and she said that if her son says something she doesn't agree with, she can take a moment and think about how to respond, which is lovely, mashallah. And she's saying her 7-year-old leaves her notes and missed her toys around the house. That's lovely, mashallah. And the expectations, I think the expectations of certain children. So again, how would you kind of deal with that, where my older three, because I know we've got similar kind of dynamics going on, because you've got older kids and younger kids, right? So my older three often say to me, when I was 6, I used to tidy up everything. I used to clean up from top to bottom, and I know they didn't, right? But obviously they must have felt that. Or they say, we used to be in bed when it was light outside. Mum, we used to hear the Maghrib azan and we were in bed. Like, no, mate, it might have been Isha, but definitely not Maghrib. So in terms of like kind of balancing that with the older kids and the younger kids, still maintaining that connection with them, still not wanting them to feel like, you favor the younger ones more. Because generally speaking, the younger ones, for me anyway, are easier to deal with. Like their demands are easier for me to get my head round. Whereas with the older kids, like you said, and like Sister Rakshanara said, you have to take a bit of time to get your head round what's going on. Like today, my eldest wants to go to a pajama party. She's definitely not going to stay overnight, but she's wore her pajamas. She's got an abaya on top. But like, to me, that's like, what are you doing? But you've got to step back and go, well, just let them get on with it. You understand what I'm saying? Like, how do you maintain that kind of fairness? And walaikum assalam, sisters. Thank you so much for joining us. Sister Adila is here, Sister Aisha, Sister Saima, Sister Rakshanara. Everyone, come and say hi to us. We are so ready for this next conference, and we would love to see you all, and let us know what you want to know about as well. So, sorry, Coach Amina, go ahead.
No, it's fine. I'm so glad that you mentioned that then, because I was just thinking, I've not mentioned the conference really apart from at the start today, and it really is such an amazing lineup. I'm so excited about it. I'm excited. Never mind everybody else. I'm super excited because I really, really am, and that's just true because there isn't many free opportunities out there to be able to learn and upskill as a parent. So it's a wonderful gift from Allah, in all honesty with you. So thank you, Jazakallah khair, for organising this for us all. So my older children will often say, and they're like, there's a 10-year age gap between my eldest two and my youngest two. So they're 19 and 17 and 7 and 8. And the older two will say, oh, you are a completely different mother to what you were to us. And I'm like, well, I was 18 and 20 when I had you. And even though I wasn't like a reckless and irresponsible parent at the time, my skill set was completely different. Like I was definitely operating from a place of, well, my mum did it to me and it didn't do me any harm. Well, the truth is there was lots of things our parents have done that weren't necessarily abusive, that were not necessarily productive in the parenting journey, right? It might work for them with us, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for us with our older kids. And obviously you try different things. My mum used to say things about my older children because they used to mess around in the supermarket, and stuff like that. And she'd say, take them outside and tell them you're going to slap the legs, right? This is what she used to say to me. And I used to look at her like, there's absolutely no way I'm going to be able to take my children outside and slap the legs because they're just being a bit hyperactive in the suit. I just can't do that. It's just like so far away from who I was as a parent, Yeah. So I didn't do it. And of course, every misdemeanor that happened, oh, you didn't slap them enough. You didn't slap them enough, so I know what it's like to have that. I know what it's like to have that kind of like extended family pressure of people think you're doing it wrong. And it was actually my parenting upskill really took to the stage, if you like, if you want to call it that, the parenting stage, when my second, you know what they say, firstborns are like, and seconds are like,
People say that, but mine is the complete opposite. And one of my friends is like you. She had such an easy first one, so the second one was like a big shock to her system. But because I had the hard one first, I feel like the second one I was kind of rewarded for. But she would come to me for advice because she had no idea what to do with the second one, if that makes sense. But because I've been through it, and then I've gone like, alhamdulillah, Allah bless me with an easier child the second time. I'm not going to say that.
So it's not that uncommon. I was the second child and I was good, so it's not that uncommon.
It's all right. It's not too bad. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Yusra. Welcome.
So it was when she was about 12, I was like, my parenting skills are not really working with this one, at this stage, like what is it that I need to learn? And I was doing some reading actually about at the time about passive aggressive parenting, and I was trying to figure out, I'm quite a reflective person anyway, and so I was like, am I a passive aggressive parent? Is this what's happening? Am I taking things out on her and this is why she's reacting? And of course, she's going into that adolescent age where hormones are flying everywhere and attitudes and all the rest of it. Independence is raging through, like, stop telling me what to do and such. And I realized that a lot of her behaviors actually were passive aggressive towards me through like trying to do this kind of like assessment on myself. And so I went through a lot of significant upskilling with her. And, of course, that journey's just continued and continued. And obviously the little ones have been getting older and I've held space for them much better than I would have been able to with the older two, with the younger two. So I just say to the older two, I am a completely different parent, literally, because I just didn't know what I know now when you were little. And I'm sorry about that. And if we've got any gaps, let's try and plug them together now, because you're young adults. I'm here to support you. I'm sorry if I didn't meet every single need, that you felt you needed at the time. You don't have to hate me for the rest of your life for it, though. And I'm humble enough to say, how can I help you with that? And is there any ways I can help you with that? So like, and I'm not averse to that at all. And I actually mean that 100%. And even now, like my parenting journey with my older one's more about, you don't have to stay in these cycles of what you think your reality, like this, your reality right now doesn't have to be your norm for the rest of your life. You're not stuck here. You feel a bit stuck right now because things are overwhelming for you, but you are literally capable of anything. And he's like, he was predominantly looked after by his dad as a teenager because that was his choice. And his dad doesn't talk like that a lot. So a lot of this information is very new to him. And he's starting to really believe in himself now that he has got a lot more capabilities than he actually realized. So swings and roundabouts, alhamdulillah, I really enjoy being with the older ones. And I absolutely love being with the younger ones too. I've got so much mum guilt at the moment because I'm super busy, and the young ones are like, are you working again today? And I'm just like, yes, but I'm like nipping in and out, and an hour here and an hour there. So I'm just blessed that I can sit in conversations with lovely ladies like you about subjects that I am so passionate about. Because Sarah, when I say the ground we cover in sessions like these, even if it's hopping online for half an hour, can help so many people literally just rejig one thing about the way they interact with their children a day, and it literally starts a whole new ripple effect of how the relationship goes. So we shouldn't underestimate, it's all sadaqah jariyah, you know, like for ourselves. And you know, it's alhamdulillah, thank you.
No, thank you. You know, for me, myself, I think when you said it was 12 years old, that was with my daughter Miriam as well. About 12, that's when I started reading up, researching, and thinking, like, what am I doing wrong? Like, why is she like this? And I think we kind of think it's our fault, whereas we don't kind of realize that they're their own person. And when I realized that, you know, she's her own person, she's going to make her own mistakes, but I'm just the guide, that really was a mind shift for me that I had, that I think that I really felt like now we're going to change, now something's going to happen. And I feel that, and Sister Rakshana was saying when her son was 10. So I think it's about that age where they kind of start coming on into their own. And then we start going, okay, wait, hang on a minute. The first 10 years weren't too bad, but now what's going on? So this is really good, mashallah. Sister Adila saying that she feels she has to be a different version of a parent for each child because their needs, their demands, their personalities are different as well. What do you think of that?
Yeah, different things work for different children, absolutely. And I don't even agree, like, across, I think we have to have kind of like a framework of consistency at a general level for the whole house in terms of like expectations, but always being able to engage them on an individual level is where the gold really is. And that's like truly adaptable, positive parenting, isn't it? You know, it's intentional parenting. It's wonderful. I'm all for that, me, all day, every day, 100%. Because my children say, even the two youngest will say, "Oh, but she did this or he did that, and you said this, and you didn't do that with me," kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, there's a reason at 38 years old I decided. I don't say that, but I said, this is what I'm saying to myself. There's a reason at 38 years old. I nearly said 83. I feel 83 some days. That make choices that are slightly different sometimes. And for me, a lot of, like, for example, like what's commonly described as misbehavior, I often don't see it as that. I just don't. And I see the children, whether they're mine or other people's, and I'm like, okay, what's that child missing right now? What's the missing piece for that child that they're feeling like this needs to be their go-to? Because it usually is about connection and belonging. How can I make a connection, show affection if I need to show affection, if it's my own children, of course. And if there's some kind of correction, you know, I really love you, really, really love you so much, but I don't accept that. And that's true. I'm your mum. I love you, and I don't accept kicking. I mean, my children don't kick very often, but I'm just giving it as an example. I love you. I can't even tell you how much I love you, but I will not accept, you know, and so I literally have to do that myself. And it's, my 19-year-old will say I'm different with my 17-year-old than I am with him. And the 17-year-old, of course, reminds me a lot that I'm very different with the 8 and 7-year-old than I am with her. And sibling rivalry, right? I'm like, you all get me in different ways.
I think when I used to have a lot of trouble, I used to always go back to my parents and I used to ask them. I used to be like, "Come on," because from my siblings as well, there is one. I'm not going to mention her. She knows who she is. I'm joking. And I know that my mum and dad did have trouble with her, and I used to say to them that, "How did you deal with it?" But then kind of I see in her adult personality, there's not much change that I feel as a sibling. My parents feel it's different, but I don't. So I used to be like, I don't want my other kids to grow up and not have the same, have the same feelings about this sibling because of all what's been going on. So I used to like ask for help and sort of stuff like that. And one of the things which I think really goes well with what you're saying about the connection and the affection is that even when she was doing something that really, would annoy me, or it was like something that I really thought you shouldn't be doing that, I would have to look for something good that she did. And that used to be so hard. Like, I can't even explain. Sometimes I would say something like, thanks for eating your dinner. That's all I could think about, because I couldn't think of one good thing that she'd done that day. And then that, I feel, it took time, like I'd say years, a couple of years at least, until we started getting that relationship back to where it was before.
Something my mum used to say, Sarah, which is in direct relation to what you're saying there. And I had like a really turbulent older sibling and younger sibling. I was like the quiet middle one that bimbled along. So I kind of like stayed off the radar kind of thing. Is that my mum always used to say, there's a good thing that she used to say outside of the slapping, which she never, this is the thing, she never used to slap us. She slapped me like twice in my whole life or something. She wasn't even one of those parents who starts licking up the kids in the car park or anything like that. She didn't do that.
Threatening, but threatening was enough then.
Yeah. Like, oh, I don't want that to happen. And anyway, so she used to say, I love you, but I don't like that behavior. So she was always, making sure, and this is just so important, because some parents will get angry and they'll say, I don't even like you. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. We should never, ever. And if we've said it, astaghfirullah, let's find new things to say in those moments of anger, because we're all going to get frustrated and we're all going to, feel a certain way. But we have to be careful to do ours of mothers, right? That fall out of our mouths when we're angry count too. And this is why we have to be super vigilant on ourselves, is that, it's okay to say, I'm not doing well with this conversation right now. Let's check back in 30 minutes. You go and do what you need to do. I'm going to do what I need to do, especially when they're teenagers, right? And they can take that kind of, distancing for a short period of time. I love you, but I can't speak to you about this right now. I need to come back in 15, 20 minutes when we've both calmed down. Let's both come back to the conversation when we can both do better in it, type of thing. I love you, but I don't accept that. And I really don't like that behavior, So lots of young people grow up, especially as teenagers, and they feel like my parents don't like me. My parents don't love me. And that becomes a self-limiting belief of a child or a young person because of the way the parent decides to deploy their discipline, if you want to call it that, or punitive action type of thing. So I actually don't use punitive action with my younger children. And yes, they are boisterous, and alhamdulillah, the wonderful little children who everybody knows are in the room when they're in the room. And I'm okay with that, because I don't feel this social pressure to keep them quiet, sat still, not being seen or heard and all that kind of stuff. Or seen and not heard, shall I say. I have a very different attitude now. So
That's really, just 1 second. So my family's trying to avoid the camera. Okay, so I do agree with what you said there, and I kind of wanted to go back a little bit. Sister Victoria's here. Assalamu alaikum, Coach Victoria. She said her 30-year-old son's personality characteristics that were most challenging when he was a child are now some of his greatest strengths. I love that. Inshallah, I really, really hope that is true for my daughter, honestly, because if that's the case, then I'll be all right with what we've had to suffer with. And Sister Rafia is asking, how do we deal with sibling rivalry? Do you want to answer that one? Because my son's here.
Okay. So what I would suggest with that, the sibling rivalry usually starts with obviously competition for affection and attention and connection. Give each child 10 minutes a day of uninterrupted you and them time, you and each child, and they get to choose whatever they want to do in that 10 minutes. If they want to play dinosaurs, you're playing dinosaurs for 10 minutes and running around like a T-Rex. If they want to play Jenga, that's what you're going to do. If they want to read with you, but it's just for them. It's uninterrupted. Everybody in the house, this is a new daily routine. This really fills a child's emotional bucket. Really fills a child's emotional bucket. So when you give each child 10 minutes of uninterrupted, I am just here with you and nothing else in the world's going to stop this. It's just me and you. And it's just 10 minutes. You can always expand that if you've got time to expand that. I know everybody's super busy, so they might struggle, especially if they've got more than 2 or 3 children. But if you can give each child 10 minutes a day, in the moment, it's like, you know what, guys, you don't have to like each other all the time, but it's okay to have time apart. And, you know, you're going to need to try and designate them some decompression space in the house if they've not got their own rooms, you know, so that they can, you know, whether it's a part of the house where you have a beanbag where they could, you know, people just need to, it's not naughty corner or sitting on the step like Super Nanny. Don't agree with any of that, in all honesty with you. But it is space away, kind of like, who wants to sit there, or even have a couple of spots like that in the house and have things there. Like, it sounds ridiculous, but like fidget spinners and other sensory things where people can just go, I'm not thinking about anything. Just let me switch off and unplug for a minute, because my cortisol levels are through the roof. They don't know this, but the cortisol levels are through the roof. They're actually in fight, freeze, or flight. They're not going to be very compliant or cooperative. So everybody going away to come back so that they can do better is always. And obviously, that depends on how old they are. So sibling rivalry at what age? It's a difficult question to answer. You know, it could be 2, or they might be 20. You get in the dining room and you get in the kitchen. You
know? Coach Shanara said that she's got 2 boys that are close in age, about 20 months different. One's a teen already and one's preteen. One thinks that I favor the other and thinks I'm too easygoing on the other one. I think that's a common thread. I feel in a lot of families it's a common thread, and the way that I explain it to my kids is, you know, I don't love anyone more than anyone else. I really don't. But it's easier to get on with someone when they don't cause you so many problems. But obviously you've got to say it in a nicer way and not say that they are the one that's causing the problems, you know. So I say to them, you know, and it's easier again when there's more things that you can notice that they are doing really well, you know. And once I think that we kept pointing out, like, you know, oh, that was a really good, you know, like this one's playing football outside now. So I'll be like, wow, that was awesome. You know, you chose to come outside and play rather than be on the screen. Because when I'm on lives, that's what they do. They go on the phone and stuff like that. So we've just got to kind of pick on things and remind them that they are doing a good job. And then slowly, I feel like they'll understand that you do love all of them, you know, the same. But again, like I said to you, there was a time when I found it really difficult. And the way that my dad explained it to me was about debits and credits. So he used to say that whenever you talk to a child, and it goes along with what Coach Aminah is saying, whenever we're talking to them, if we're affectionate and we're sitting next to them, we're stroking their hair, giving them, you know, my kids, the 2 younger especially, love massages. So they'll literally come and say, massage my back, my foot, my whatever. They do it to me as well. So it's okay. I don't mind doing it to them.
No, I agree.
He's laughing now. And so they love that physical touch, especially the 2 younger ones. And I feel that having that physical touch is building up credits with them. So if I tell them off, they don't think that I hate them. So whereas my older kids would have said to me, oh, you know, mummy, I hate you, or you really hate me, mummy, that's why you shouted at me. The younger 2 would never say that to me because they know that I love them, if that makes sense. With the older ones, they used to go through that, and I used to carry it as a badge of honor. I would be like, yeah, if you hate me, that means I'm doing my job right. Which, you know, obviously as we're growing older and thinking of mellowing out, then I guess it's kind of not as, you know, positive, peaceful parenting as we learned later on. But now with the older kids, sometimes it's really weird that they'll just stop in the middle of the room and go, Mom, just give me a hug. And I'll be like, so like, I'll be grateful for the hug because I'll always feel like I want to hug them. But as teenagers, I'm sure, you know, they're like, hey, Mom, get away. You know, I don't want to hug you, kind of thing. So they actually ask me for hugs now, which I think is really cute and nice. And I feel like they appreciate me and I appreciate them more. In terms of that affection that we have. And, you know, they do get involved with the massages now, which is nice as well. Sister Rafia is saying that her daughter, she's got one daughter who's 10, a boy is 9, and a 6-year-old boy. And I guess the sibling rivalry is between the 3 of them. And Coach Rakshanara is saying she connects with her boys differently based on their interests, but they get stuck in a negative belief when they're upset. And I think that's true. Kids do that, don't they? They tend to look for something that they have got evidence for, and they're like, "Yep, that's my evidence. That she's like that. There's my evidence for it." And they always look for the evidence that is going to fit their narrative of what's going on. So what do you think about that, Coach Aminah? That's quite a lot there.
No, it's a challenge when you've got 3 children close in age. Absolutely, 100%, it is a challenge. But I would definitely be working towards establishing quiet breakout space. So my smallest children we drew around their hands during the lockdown. This was, and it's called the breathing hand, and we cut it out and they decorated it. I know this is a much younger child thing to do, and they chose wherever in their bedroom they wanted to stick it. They have separate bedrooms. And anytime they start to get really frustrated or irritated with each other, I say, go and take those breaths on your breathing hand, and take as many breaths as the age that they are. So he would take 8 deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. And we're not to come back to, whatever the conflict is until we've all done that. And I do it as well. So I'm going in the kitchen, you go to your room, and, so I actually have this ongoing conversation. I often find that the conflicts break out when we're really tired or distracted with something else that we think is really important, or we just need a bit of disconnection time. So I think I've told you this before. My children, the youngest children, go to bed at 7:00, but they're allowed to stay awake till 8. They know 7:00 is bedtime. And if they need something in an emergency, they can come out of the bedrooms, get a drink and go to the bathroom and all that kind of stuff. But really after 7:00, it's there, like they can read and play a game in the bedroom, that kind of thing. But it's time to go to sleep at 8. And the reason I give them this quiet time is so that they can literally start to calm the mind and body down. There's no screen time in that time, by the way. I know, and I'm not an anti-screen person. My kids, they've got an iPad and they actually don't spend a lot of time on it, in all honesty with you, but they do watch YouTube on, videos and things like that. So I'm not averse to that. But that last hour before bed, I think it really serves them well, to have that quiet, separate time from each other. And I get that not everybody's got the benefit of separate rooms. One of the things I was going to say, which is to work towards breakout spaces, even if it's not bedroom space, somewhere in the house. Most of us do have, enough room in like the living room or the dining room or the kitchen, because kitchen's like the hearts of the house. If you've got a big enough kitchen to have a table or even a comfy chair in it, stick a comfy chair in it. It's just another space that's separate from everybody else most of the time. So get creative with it. There are no set rules about this. Just do what works for your house. And we're talking about physical affection with teenagers. So my 17-year-old, she's like, will you play with my hair, Mum? That's her thing. That's what feels. So she will sit on the floor in front of me and I will plait her hair. I will stroke her hair. So she actually asks for a lot of hugs anyway, but that's her thing. She really loves that. And she knows that if I'm going to sit there for an hour just running my fingers through her hair and, not even necessarily doing if you've got a teenage daughter and, get YouTube on and do a fancy hairstyle off YouTube. And if it doesn't turn out exactly right, that's part of the fun. And what's that?
I said it never does. Don't worry about it. Just carry on.
No, yeah. But the serotonin between the two people is constantly being released from the brain because it's physical affection, it's physical touch, and it's, it really does. It's definitely a worthwhile deposit, debit, as your dad says, like debits and credits type of thing. And I'm sorry if I didn't answer absolutely everything you asked for then. I'm not 100% sure I did. Was there anything I missed that you wanted me to go back to?
No, it's lovely, mashallah. It's just, I think just kind of going over, and I think Coach Yusra said it as well, where we confirm our own biases and beliefs. So where something happens that kind of agrees with what we said earlier, then we're like, yes, I was right, whereas where something would happen that didn't agree with what you thought earlier, we're like, ignore it. For example, I'd say something like, oh, my husband never helps out in the house, so I'll ask him to turn the washing machine on or something, and he didn't do it. And I'll be like, see, you never help me, ever. I've always asked you to do stuff. But if he's washed up for the dishes or if he's done something else, I'll just ignore it. I'll just keep on going back to the fact that confirms my belief that he doesn't help me in the house.
Mm.
So again, I think that we just have to be really conscious about looking at the whole picture and saying, like, is it really this? Is it really that? No, come on, he helped me there, he did this or he did that, to kind of keep on fighting those beliefs in our head. And again,
Yeah.
that's the mindset work that we do with Coach Yusra, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And whether you're a child or an adult in a family, you want to feel respected. You want to feel significant. You want to feel appreciated for your contribution to that family unit. It doesn't matter if you're 3, 13, or 33. We all have this human need, right? So, as long as, our families can, if we just remember that, like even if we're not necessarily feeling appreciated, which I know a lot of mums, feel overworked and, like just completely exhausted all the time. When we initiate a change, even smiling for no reason at one of your children, like, what are you smiling at? And it's like, just because I'm grateful to Allah that you're in my life, that's why. And they're looking at you and they know they've not done anything specifically. If you're really struggling, I definitely recommend people pick that one, because it's an emotional reinforcer of connection to the Almighty anyway. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because sometimes it can be a struggle to identify a good thing, because we super hyper focus on the negative. We do quite often, and it's hard to, I'm still so stressed about what they did 3 days ago. I can't even think about praising what they did 10 minutes ago. And the truth is, we just have to let it go, and we have to do that, because that does make them feel connected, significant, and a sense of belonging. And this is what helps them feel emotional intimacy and safety in the family unit. They're going to come to you with the problems instead of going to whoever it is out there. And that's what we don't want, right?
Oh, it's brilliant, mashallah. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for coming along today and sharing your thoughts with us. Everyone has loved it. Everyone's saying you're 100% true. Jazakallah khair, sister. And they love this conversation, mashallah. And I've loved it. I've loved being in this conversation. And we want to let everybody know that is watching that will be coming, inshallah, to the conference. So we have something really awesome for you this conference. So at the moment, you tend to listen to us quite a lot, and we want to turn the tables now. So we want to listen to you. So you get a chance to come into our Zoom sessions. So what we've noticed is, and Coach Amna, I'm sure you agree with me, in our coaching sessions, in that safe space, because we have coaching with Coach Yusra weekly, and in that safe space that the three of us have, we've shared so much and we've learned so much, and I've got so much help, inshallah, alhamdulillah. And I think that sharing your issues with other mums, they become less challenging. What do you think? Like, in your mom?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think I haven't got the vocab to describe how healing it is and how anxiety reducing it is to just feel less isolated and alone. It's like everybody in this Parenting with Allah by my side camp just wants you to have extra skills. Nobody's going to scrutinize you. That's not what we're about. It's about what can we share with you that might enhance your journey as a mum. Oh, and guess what? It's probably going to benefit your children and your grandchildren as well, because when the children learn these behaviors and adopt them, it tends to be a generational thing that gets passed on, right? And it's not even just about that. It's just like, we're all mums and we all made mistakes. We all continue sometimes to make mistakes. And that safe space that we have with Yusra, I've shared, ladies, in that space like I never thought I would share. And my goodness, has it done me the world of good, because there's a lot of fear around sharing what really, needs to be shared. So that, and we're all on this journey of personal development, so we're just here to be of service to you in the best way that we can be. So please don't be shy, please don't be embarrassed, and certainly don't feel ashamed about anything. We're in this together, and this is the village that you've been looking for to help you upskill, inshallah.
100%. And Coach Rakshana is saying it's finding your tribe and being vulnerable without fear of judgment. So we have weekly meetings, we have bi-weekly meetings with the entire team, then we have sub meetings, and every single time we meet, we realize more and more how much that connection really means to us. Because I think there was a time when I was ill a couple of weeks ago and I didn't meet for about 3 weeks. That day, everybody turned up, and normally there's about 5 or 6 of us, isn't it? And then everyone showed up that day, and I was like, whoa, this is a really busy class today. You know, we were laughing. But it was because we missed each other that much that we hadn't spoken, we hadn't had that time to converse with each other. And that's what we want to create for you. So there will be one coach leading your Zoom meeting for you, and there will be as many ladies as there are, and you can come and you can share what's troubling you, what you feel challenged with. And if you've got things that have worked for you, please do come along and share them, because that's the whole idea about sharing, learning from each other. And I have got messages from sisters that are coaches themselves and they'd like to come on. Please just message me, we'll organize it, and you're all welcome, because this is a real collaborative community. I said the wrong word. Collaborative community, right? We want to work together, because the main objective of parenting with Allah by our side is being able to have like a whole group of people that think very similar to us, so that when our children grow older, inshallah, they'll have that community as well, right? And like Coach Amna just said, it's about beyond this generation, it's beyond us, beyond our children, their grandchildren, because there's so many things that have been passed on generation to generation with our previous, you know, with the culture that I'm from, with the culture that Coach Amina's from, and we all think, oh, this is black and brown culture, or this is white culture. It's not. It's just previous generations, right? So we can all come together and create this new culture where we can all feel included, and everyone can be included, everyone is inclusive, and inshallah really make a difference. So please, I'm inviting all of you personally. When you sign up, just look down below in the comments or in the description in the YouTube. You'll be able to sign up, and then you'll get an email straight away confirming that you've signed up. And then you'll be taken to another page where you can download. Check this out. You can download 12 different things, which is so amazing. Every single coach on the team has offered something that will help you create that life that you want, the life that you deserve with your children, inshallah. So please do come along, and we're just waiting for you all. And thank you so much to Sister Rafia. Sorry, Sister Facebook user, I can't see your name. But you said, mashallah, alhamdulillah, so welcome. And Adila, Yusra, everybody, Rafia, Rokshanara, Adila, have I said everyone's names? Victoria, thank you. Aisha, Saima, everybody that has commented. I really appreciate all your comments as well, and so does Coach Aminah. Have you got any last words that you'd like to share?
Just, I don't know what you're doing between the 1st and the 5th of November, but you're busy now because you're coming to the conference. And, you know, honestly, get signed up, ladies. Even if you only actually manage to sit down and really concentrate on an hour of it, it will be an hour that you will be grateful. Your future self will literally thank you for this, as our Sarah Sally says. You know, it's really important. Please join us, because you don't have to do this alone. And so many people suffer in silence in the mothering journey. It becomes so isolating. And it's like, we're not about that anymore. You know, in this digital global community that we live in, we can be as connected as we like. Take the brave step. I'm an introvert. I hide it well, but I am actually an introvert. And if I can do it, anybody can do it.
I don't know. I would never believe that you're an introvert. Sister Saima, she's making dua. May Allah help us all, our children and ourselves, to be successful ummatis of our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is such a beautiful conversation. I seriously do not want to go, but if I do not go now, I'm going to miss my salah. So I need to say Assalamu alaikum. And Coach Yusra saying she's an introvert too. By the way, I'll say that I'm shy, but no one's going to believe me, so forget it. But anyway, all right. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair for joining us. And inshallah, we will see you soon. Look out for your emails, look out for the lives, and share everything that you can ever see. Jazakallah khair. Thanks, sisters.